I'm against globalist power. The UN should not have a lot of power. It's like, who voted for them? I didn't vote for them. You know, and it's like, we want power to the people. The power should maximum power to the individual. And so, like, we should not have any sort of international treaties that restrict the freedom of Americans, and we should minimize the amount of federal interference at the state level. So it should be like, so unless it's at the state level, which is something you can influence, then agencies at the federal and the national level should have minimal to zero power over you. Yeah.
How many of you have seen this? Trump's message to the world. Tomorrow night will be big. I will tell it like it is. What's he going to say? Well, social media believes he's going to pull out of NATO and the UN and shock the world. Now, think about it. The U.S. has already pulled out of the WHO, right? The World Health Organization. We pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords. We pulled out of the UN Human Rights Council. But if the likes of Elon Musk and Mike Lee get their way, Trump is about to announce that the U.S. is going to pull out of both the UN and NATO as well. And that is exactly what we are going to explore on our live stream tonight. So come on in, one and all. Great to see you all here for our live stream Monday night. We're just beginning week number 7. It's just week number 7. It hasn't even been a full 2 months yet of the single greatest presidency of our lifetimes. As we always do on Monday nights, we are going to move our lively discussion of all things culture and politics over to our exclusive censorship-free virtual platform. So if you want to join us over there for some sweet fellowship and very, very cool scholarly discussion, just scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description below. For a very small monthly fee, you can have access to our exclusive Q&As, exclusive content, exclusive conversations and meetups, and you get to access all of our exclusive offers. So click the link or scan the QR code to become a member of the Courageous Patriots Club, where thousands of us gather together each and every week to restore the pillars of faith, family, and freedom as we usher in a new conservative age. We will head on over there in mere moments. Our producer, Micah, likes to remind you, instead of doing, and we're very grateful for all of your super chats, but instead of putting up a super chat, like $10 or so, just join our Insiders Club. You can ask me all the questions you want for just that one low price every month. It's awesome. Now, before we go on over there, I have to address the big rumor that's going around social media tonight that Trump is going to announce the U.S. leaving NATO in his address to the joint sessions of the U.S. Congress tomorrow night. This after Elon Musk, Mike Lee, a number of others, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, are all reportedly calling for the U.S. to withdraw from both NATO and the UN as well, which I'm assuming would basically, that would end up kicking the UN out of its headquarters in New York. But now, make no mistake, were Trump to make such an announcement tomorrow night, that would be, without question, the single most shocking moment in geopolitics since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And I am talking specifically about our exit from NATO. That would be absolutely monumental. I mean, at a historic level, we just haven't seen, again, since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And this is, of course, because the fall of the Berlin Wall, ironically, ended the very world order that NATO was formed to respond to. The major purpose of the formation of NATO, as you know, was to deter the Soviet Union from attacking Western Europe. It was all part of the Marshall Plan and rebuilding Western Europe. So the U.S. would help rebuild Western Europe in exchange for, in effect, taking over Western Europe's security. But when the Berlin Wall fell back in 1989 and the Soviet Union shortly thereafter in 91, you would have thought that NATO, too, would disband. After all, the bipolar Cold War world that NATO was formed to respond to was gone. But no, NATO kept going, and it took a whole new role. NATO's new role was now to surround and isolate the Russian Federation from being an obstacle to the rising liberal international order, what we more commonly refer to as globalism. They're basically the same. You see, it's very interesting. I was listening to a scholar talking about how while the Eastern European nations were able to pivot politically toward Western Europe, Russia, even under Yeltsin, really didn't have any other recourse than their communist constitution. So Eastern Europe, remember, was not communist before the Second World War. But after the Yalta Agreement, Central and Eastern European countries got assimilated into the Soviet Communist bloc. So when that bloc disintegrated, all the Eastern European countries could pivot politically back to the way they were before their assimilation in the Soviet Union. But what could Russia do when it disintegrated? What could it do when the Soviet bloc disintegrated? They couldn't go back to the days of the czars since the czars were gone. So they were basically stuck with this more or less communist constitution, this communist light constitution. And that's why the United States and Europe have always been so suspicious of Russia in a way that they simply weren't with the former Soviet bloc nations. And so in the early 90s, we've got proposals like this one from none other than George Soros. It's a self-published paper. You can read it online. It's called Toward a New World Order, the Future of NATO. Yes, is one of the first formal uses of this term, New World Order. And the argument here is that NATO can now be refurnished to defeat any obstacle that Russia would pose for the rise of the liberal international order. And Soros and others proposed that we use NATO's technology and weapons together with Eastern European troops that would be assimilated into NATO, that together with this technology and these troops, we would together surround and, if necessary, defeat Russia because, again, Russia remained very suspicious since it's still utilized, at least in part, its old communist constitution. So NATO's technology could combine with Eastern European troops to isolate Russia and keep it from impeding the growth of globalism. And that's precisely how we ended up in this horrific situation with Ukraine that all your Facebook friends are so ignorant of when they put up their little Ukrainian flag. What is it? Didn't I see the Babylon Bee? And then they put a post out like, Trump announces draft for every Facebook user that has a Ukrainian flag on, every American Facebook user that has a Ukrainian flag on their account, right? Look, this is how Ukraine ended up becoming a proxy for NATO's aggression against Russia, and why Russia responded militarily almost 3 years ago today, back in February 2022. And this is why University of Chicago geopolitical scholar John Mearsheimer argued that war in the Ukraine was inevitable given the dynamics of great power politics. You cannot poke the bear like NATO was doing. Oh, you found it, Micah. That's our producer, Micah. He's quick, man. He's quick. Trump institutes military draft for everyone with Ukraine flag on the Facebook profile. I think he's announcing that tomorrow night. That, according to the Babylon Bee, of course. But you can't keep poking the bear the way NATO has and not expect the bear to respond, particularly given the dynamics of great power politics. That is what is so key to understanding why NATO is on such thin ice right now as far as President Trump is concerned. I think Trump sees NATO. I know he sees NATO as far more of a provocative force than a protective force. particularly in this rising civilizationalist world, a world that's rising around multiple great power blocks that don't take too kindly to NATO forces encroaching on their hegemons. In other words, far from being defensive, NATO is clearly being perceived by Russia, by China, by others as increasingly offensive, and therefore more an instrument for geopolitical imbalance and instability rather than one of geopolitical balance and stability. And to me, this is what explains why it seems right now that America's long-term allies are increasingly becoming our rivals, all the while our long-term rivals appear to be becoming increasingly our partners. It's because America's allies are stuck in a liberal international order that simply no longer exists. I think this is so key to understanding this tectonic shift that's happening here in our geopolitics. Our so-called allies, the elites in Canada, and the UK, and the European Union, are all right now, as we speak, groveling over Zelensky. They're calling on the G7 to actually disinvite Trump from attending their annual summit. And this is all happening at the very same time President Putin is extending one olive branch after another to normalize relations with the United States. When all is said and done, Trump appears to be far more interested in aligning the United States with a great power bloc like Russia than he is with an increasingly irrelevant, stale European elite bureaucracy that spends its time longing for a liberal era that no longer exists. So all of that then raises the question, is NATO over? If the Cold War era that NATO was forged in no longer exists, and if Trump is steadfastly opposed, if Trump is determined to dismantle the liberal international order that Soros and others tried to enlist NATO into, then why on earth would it continue? Why on earth would Trump want to continue with NATO if both the worlds that existed in are gone? Now, to be clear, as I understand it, Trump cannot unilaterally withdraw from NATO. Okay, that's going to splash a little cold water on things here. I believe it is it's built into the treaty. You would need Senate approval, but at this point, I literally see no reason, no rationale for why Trump would continue with NATO. The Cold War is over. The liberal international order is over. There's no rationale for NATO to continue. So Trump could announce tomorrow night that he will put the withdrawal from NATO before the Senate, as well as withdrawal from the UN. I believe called for the United States to finally emancipate itself from these two hangovers from an old world. I'm assuming the UN would require congressional approval as well. Either way, tomorrow night promises to be absolutely epic, and we'll see if the rumors online tonight turn out to be prophetic. Over to you guys. Over to you. Let's bring out our producer, Micah, for some instructions on transferring over to our own exclusive live platform. Good job there, Micah. That was pretty on it.
Let's go. I got some screen time, and I got some compliments from Dr. Steve taking up some of the precious minutes on YouTube. That's awesome. Yeah, guys, I just wanted to reinforce what Dr. Steve said at the beginning of the live stream. We have our uncensored Q&A every Monday night, and we have about, I think, 5,500 members that pay a monthly or annual subscription. And as Dr. Steve said, and as I like to say every time, This is a monthly fee, and it's a very small $10 monthly fee. You can pay more if you'd like, but $10 a month instead of $10 a question through super chats on YouTube, which we're very happy when you guys give super chats. We love them. We love to read them, and thank you each individually for your gifts. But if you just want to subscribe and join our Courageous Patriots Club, then we would be happy to give your questions to Dr. Steve and let him answer them, as many as you'd like, every Monday and every Friday morning. So if you would like to join, please scan that QR code, click the link below, and we would love to have you every Monday and Friday in our VIP live streams asking questions. So without further ado, I'm going to do some of these. Actually, I'm going to do the one super chat we have from Keith B before we go over to our uncensored Q&A. So we have Keith B, and he has a $10. Thank you so much, Keith B. Save your money though. Just buy that 1 month of the Courageous Patriots Club, and you can ask a million questions instead of just this one. But he asks, I believe the Dems passed a law in 2023 forbidding any future presidents from leaving NATO until 1 year has passed from the date of the announcement to leave. Is that true?
I don't know if it's specific as to the way you put it. As I understand it, I did read that, yes, the Dems did pass a law in Congress that does hamstring the president's ability to help leave NATO. But I also believe that NATO, the treaty of NATO, the NATO treaty does have a provision in it already. It's baked into the cake that it does require at least Senate approval. This tends to be the case when you're dealing with treaties. If you're just dealing with membership, like the Paris Accords, like the UN Human Rights Council, we can leave the president can leave. It's at his discretion. But when you are dealing with binding treaties, that does require congressional approval. But yes, I do believe the Democrats acted to further hamper President Trump's hands in this. I don't think it's going to be honest with you. If he wants to leave, he's got to crack what is it? Top-notch team to be able to figure out how to get around the Democrat shenanigans.
And I just want to highlight one of our members before we head on over to our VIP live stream, Steve Lettingham. I have not seen too many questions from Steve over the past couple of weeks, but this is great. We get to highlight him. This is a good capper for the live stream too, for all of our YouTube and Rumble and X listeners. If we remove ourselves from those globalist institutions, what would that mean for the coming multipolar world?
So I believe that's going to force the hand of some new alliances and new organizations to emerge. I mean, they're talking about, multipolar theorists are talking about that now, with NATO being so obsolete. I mean, that's exactly what Trump has called NATO in the past, obsolete. With the EU being so out of touch with the European people that JD made clear in his Valentine's Day speech in Munich. It's just going to require other institutions. You got to have institutions, because institutions give you the order to the international world. That institutions create the protocols and the obligations that countries have aligned themselves with. So you're going to have some new institutions that are going to be more reflective of this power block, multi-power block world. I think that's what you're going to see.
All right. And as you were speaking, we had one more super chat.
Sure. Come on in.
From TC. Thank you for the $5, TC. What is the history of the British versus Russian animosity? How much time do you have, Dr. Steve?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of that. I mean, my European Russian history is more, because I love Russian literature. It's more the mutual respect that France has had. It's better I don't answer that question, because I don't really. Maybe you know it better than I do, Michael. Why Russia and Britain have always been bumping heads of late.
Maybe I'll have to start my own channel and start researching that. But I think I'm good for right now. That's a great question, TC. If you come on the Courageous Patriots Club in our VIP live stream, you can maybe parse out some more details from Dr. Steve. And
we have lots of Brits on there that can give us more
Yes, I'm
insight
sure
into
people
that
in
as
the
well.
chat would love to help, and
Yeah.
maybe we can get Connor in here and he can
Yeah,
expound on his
somehow
version.
Cromwell will show up. I don't know
Yes,
why. Oliver Cromwell
Cromwell,
always shows up
and
when
then
Connor
we'll end up
waxes eloquent
counting.
about the.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, without any further ado, we are going to transition over to our VIP live stream. I'll put that QR code on the screen one last time. It's fight.purelytalks.com/Monday-QA. And this is for only a small monthly fee. You get to ask as many questions as you'd like to Dr. Steve every Monday night and every Friday morning at 11 a.m. And of course, we will all be going to our VIP private live stream very soon. In 30 seconds. We would love to see you all over there.